Pashtus, we're going to do this thing now for this week. This says officially Seder is supposed to be over, but Mustama, if it would be in Yeshiva Tuesday morning, would be the last year. But now there's no reason. There's no reason to stop Mustama. So we're going to start now, and we'll go till at least the end of this week. So the emphasis, this is not easy Mamer. There's a lot of Shvere and Yanim over here. It's mamish heavy in Yanim. It is going back a bit to the sugyas of Eir and Shefa and the Tifera Hagdoris and Biurim of the Rebbe in Eir, which doesn't say anywhere beforehand in Chassidus and such a even. It's mamish, it's Naya in Yanim and it's Tifa in Yanim. So it's worth investing. But, if we're already doing this, we might as well do something, the flesh. It's Mustama Kedai to make note that the first time the Rebbe said this Mamer, Achim Shal Pesach touching you down. So it's a Pesach the Kinyan, it's about Mashiach. Then the next week was Kadeshim. Parshas Kadeshim was a very special Fabrengen. It was by that Fabrengen that the Rebbe taught Tzomlach HaNafshi. The Rebbe asked they should sing the Nigun Tzomlach HaNafshi, and they tried different Nigunim, and nobody really knew the Nigun properly. So the Rebbe started teaching it. And then the way the Rebbe taught it is the Rebbe said the shtickle, and then the Elam had noch gesagt, and they didn't do it right, so the Rebbe said it again, and the noch mal lieber gesagt. And after doing that a few times, so Lachatchila, the Rebbe said, I'm not going to be makbid on the sechzentel, on like just a fraction of a note, but the Elam should learn the Ning. And the emphasis from then, that's when it became this new Seder Advarim of people, of the Rebbe saying Tzomlach HaNafshi and the Elam Chazer, like this whole style, the way it was gebayt, was because that was originally the way the Rebbe taught it. So by that Fabrengen, it was Hemshech Nachem Shal Pesach, it was a Mamer, which was the Hemshech Nachem Shal Pesach. And then the Rebbe spoke the Rebbe spoke as this Mamer, which we did at Nachem Shal Pesach, is not the Mamer from the Al Rabbi. He said, Bichlal, the Frierdiker Rebbe, after his oldest daughter was born, he asked the Rebbe Rashab for Matane to give him a Mamer, but in the same Indian, in the signet of each one of all the Rabbi. So the Rebbe said that you could see that Kama Mamorim, that you have the same Mamer, but every Rebbe says in a different signet. It's choppy?
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, we can try calling.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The Frierdiker Rebbe asked then from the Rebbe Rashab to give him a Mamer, so he gave him a Mamer. So the Rebbe said then, I can't say which Mamer we're talking about, but what he could say is, as this Mamer that we chazed on Pesach, which is referring to this Mamer, this Indian you could find from all the Rabbi. And the Rebbe went through how you see this Maimah, the way the Alter Rebbe spoke about it, and the way the going through the whole Seder Shtalshlos, the way the Mittel Rebbe spoke, which basically this Maimah is, it's funny to call, one Maimah more important than another, but basically this Maimah is giving the Sedis of Chassidus Chabad. Because this is, in many Mamorim you have Kominei in Yanim in Avede, or Yanim in Seder Shtalshlos Prot. But there's this Maimah which is from all of the Rabbeim, which is what we call like the heavy in Yanim. So the Rebbe asked the Sedof and the Alter Rebbe, which is basically the Yesod of Eir. What is the idea of Eir, and what's the idea we call the Maila in Ketz, or Mata in Tachlis? So the way the Alter Rebbe spoke about it, he just said that it's Atzilus and Biyah. Mittel Rebbe spoke about it, Lifnei HaTzimtzum. Tzemach Tzedek was Meisif HaZbore. The way every one of the Rabbeim says, "Don't noch HaKnetz, noch HaEifn." This Maimah is also found in the Tzemach Tzedek in Yonim. Basically, it says, in Eira Teire, so you have all the different Mamarim. Then there's a few Mamarim called Lahav and Inyan Nerin Sof. And this union of Lahavan Union and Sof is basically Ein Mofar Alamal Reiden Wegen Alakus. What does it mean, Eibishter? We could talk about Pratim in the Shomer, we could talk Pratim in the Kavana of Bris Eilam, or Pratim in the Kavana of Gevissa Mitzvahs. The Chassidus is very great. And there's different drushim, being masbid the pnimis, or different sipurim of the Torah, or psukim, b'chol. But then there's, what is Alakus? So this is really the sprach from Noch Petterburg. The Alter Rebbe came back, and there's the famous Mamer Zecher of Tufcha, where the Alter Rebbe angegeben masbid sein the Inyan von And then, went weiter, and started explaining the Inyanim, Tiffer and Tiffer, through the Deiris, which we have over here, till it came to Venocha Yudala, this is the way the Rebbe spoke about this singing, was in a new Emek, and his Bem is being Mesakim, a lot of different Inyanim, which are from other places. And in each one of those, I'm sheikhim with the Shver Inyan. But over here, the Rebbe is like Bekitzer, goes through everything, Kamachta Seder. So it's big, you say this. So the main question over here in this Mamer is, what is the Eibishter? What does it mean when I say Ein Sof? Now, till Alter Rebbe, it was never spoken about. Even in Kabbalah, we don't speak about it. We speak about Dreges and Seder Shtalshlos. But Alter Rebbe started speaking much clearer. And this is the Chiddush of Chassidus Chabad, as we can read in Yonim, and I feel in Yonim from Lifnei Tzimtzum, with the full Emunah and the Vagdom of the Baal Shem Tov, aber mit der Hasbara Sichlis, which is really what we're going to be doing in this Mamer. All right. So we'll start off like this. Basically, there's. Let's skip over the beginning of the Maimon. We'll come back to it when we finish the Maimon. We'll come back to the Zibur HaMaschal and we'll learn it of the Im B'fnei Atzmai. So we're going to start really from Siv Beis. What we want to know over here is, was meint us as Ein Sof is L'mayla din Keitz or L'mata din Tachlis? So the question is obvious. What does it mean L'mayla din Keitz or L'mata din Tachlis? Just say that the Eibishter is everywhere, or that there can't be anything where the Eibishter isn't. So from them is mashma, as the Eibishter, which is Ein Sof, has two inyan. One inyan is L'mayla din Keitz, and another inyan is L'mata din Tachlis. So the shaila is, what are these two inyan? Now our Mamer is going to go in stages. First he's going to explain this bepashtus mamish, and it's going to be like in a hasbara, like in the most simple way to understand it. That it's Atzilus and Biyah. Then we're going to go tiffer in hasbara of what Atzilus and Biyah is, till we're going to go higher and higher in this same inyan, which is Ba'efin Kloli, talking about, we're still going to be using the same inyan of L'mayla din Keitz L'mata din Tachlis, but it's showing how this inyan goes throughout Seder Shtalshlos higher and higher. So, in order to explain the difference between Atzilus and Biyah, in our Mamer we're going to go through the difference between Keiches and Levushim, which is the difference between Seichel and Lidis, which are Keiches, and Machshava Dibur Maisa, which is Levushim. Once we have that chiluk, then we're going to take it a step further and explain this chiluk deeper. And then we're going to be able to understand what's the taich, L'mayla din Keitz or L'mata din Tachlis, the Atzilus and Biyah. So it's basically this sugya that we were doing before Purim, about from Tzarkul Peiches, the difference between Atzilus and Biyah, the four elements. So over here, we're coming, not Beprati is the difference in Biyah itself, like we went through it, that's Machshava Dibur Maisa, but Bechlol is the difference between Atzilus and Biyah. And that, in Areich, we went through then, but over here we're going to be approaching it from a different direction. Okay. So first the pashtus. What's the difference between Keiches and Levushim? So everyone knows that Levushim is not the person. A person could talk, but a person is not a talker. A person could bepoil talk, a person could bepoil do. A person could repel think. But that's not the Mohus Adam. Mashenken is Seichel Amidis, das is the Mensch. Ad kedekach that the Loshen in Tanya is, it's Mohus V'atzmus, this is Mamish, the Naran, the Keches of the person, this is the Mensch Ali. Beprotius. Let's say like this. First of all, let's talk about the Keach. When I say that a person is smart or a person is good, we're not describing something he's doing. We're describing who he is. This is this kind of person. Like the Rabbi said in Purim Beis, if a person's sleeping and he's smart, then he's still such a mohus. If a person is good, then he's a good person. The person is ataveche. So when I say clever, the touch is when he's learning, he's clever. When he's thinking, when he's expressing his midas, that's when he's good. A person is good or is not good. Now, al derech zeh, we're going to say, is not just in the teiches themselves, but in the specific care that we have. When a person knows something, he also becomes not just the fact that I have seichel. I have a certain, we were saying before, that I have a certain seichel. I'm more of a chachma person, more of a tzor person, more of a bina person. Then if it says, I've taken a specific seichel, I've taken a certain opinion. That also is not just in the rega that I've taken it. If I've learned the sugya, and I've become of the opinion, then that opinion stays with me even when I'm not paskening now and I'm not learning this sugya. If I take a gewisse derech hachaim, I have an opinion, wie guck ich auf Welt? As a lekus bepshitis and elements of the ischatches. So it's when I'm learning about Welt, when I'm thinking about the Eibishter, that's when. This is my hanoche. This is my day. And the day becomes part of me. And when I'm sleeping, I'm also like that. And I'll understand every day, when a person decides that he's a communist, because he thought about the sugya and he came to maskana as communism is right. So he's a communist when he's awake or when he's active in the party. He's the etzem. All right. Masha'ein Kain. Let's just add, al derech zein midas. It's not just the teva midas, if I'm a good person. So that's the whole time. It's also when I have a specific midah. If I have a friend, that friend became my friend, and it remains my friend the whole time. This is really my most. It's a metzayer me. Masha'ein Kain, machshav de bromaise, is bechlal not me. It's a dover nese von me. Was heißt, sicher, when we're talking about thinking a specific thing in Machshava Dibur Maisa, we say, like we always say, that a person could think in his head 2 + 2 = 5. Even though he doesn't understand that, and he doesn't agree with that. It's impossible for a person to hold that 2 + 2 = 5. That can't be you, but you could think it, meaning you could transmit it through your consciousness, not conscience, your hirhur in machshava, and you could go through this in you, and you say 2 + 2 = 5. How you talking that you could have such a thing? Because it's not me. The emes is noch mehr from them. Not just that the specific inyan which is going through me in Machshava de Maise, but also the etzem inyan of Machshava de Maise, the fact that I have such a levush is also a dover nesa for me. And that's something which it doesn't describe me. You can't say on a person, is a Eise. You could say on a person, he is a maven. He is a malgish. A Eise is only when he's doing it. When I'm not doing it, then I'm not Eise. So it's defined only when they are active. Von dem is verstandig, that's not really me. So, the pashtus, if a person learns Torah, or if a person has a helgish for the Eibishter, that defines him. So the result is going to be that it will remain there even lachar ma'aseh, but even if it won't be lachar ma'aseh, the etzem it's a kinyan in his nefesh. Masha'enken in machshav de b'ro ma'aseh, when a person is mekayim mitzvah payil, even b'shatz ma'aseh, it's not really him, and therefore the result is that I won't stay afterwards. Okay. Those are the pashtus. As a result of this comes another zach. That's why it's difficult to change machshava dibur ma'aseh, ma'she'en kein keiches. Because this is takami and this is not me, so I could change them. But there's three pratim, and it's very important because often people confuse them. First of all, the teva haseichel v'amidus. The way I am, I can't change, or it's very difficult. If I have a certain derech halimut, my mind works in a certain way, so it's hard to change that. Masha'enkin midas are much easier to change. Okay, that's a separate discussion. We're not getting involved in doing machshava dibur ma'aseh. But even klal, machshava dibur ma'aseh b'yachas to meichin amidus are both difficult to change. Why do we say midas is difficult? Same thing. If I am a ish teiv, if a person of ave, it's very hard to make me into a person of yireh. Machshava dibur ma'aseh, there's no such thing as a person who has a tchune without any meichin amidus of machshava dibur ma'aseh. They're atheists. Every person has chok-based atheists. So there's no such. So therefore, it's very easy to change. Noch hazachis. That's the first nukudah. Second nukudah is a specific svara. Not only is it hard to change the way I think, it's hard to change my mind in a certain opinion. If I've been convinced of a gewisse zach, it's very hard for me to change and start thinking something else. This is the way I think, this is my outlook in life. I find it hard to change. Masha'enkin in midas is nicht das. And again, Masha'enkin machshava dibur ma'aseh is nicht das. I'm thinking one thing, a second later, another thought goes into my head. I'm talking, it's ledaber, it's lashas ledaber, it's easy. Aber Sidor in Ayin Aleph, in Hemshcha Ayin Aleph in Lech Lecha, he adds a third nukudah. Not only is it hard to change my teva meichin, and not only is it hard to change me from a specific svara, it's hard to take me out of a certain svara where I'm involved in to make me involved in another thing. If I'm involved in a certain sugya, then it's very difficult for me to change that. Or if I have a certain friendship, it's not just that it's hard for me to change this specific midah. I'm now full of av over here to upright him from this and get me involved in something else is very difficult. Because the teva of meichin amidus is, it takes the whole person. Masha'enkin machshava dibur ma'aseh doesn't. Why is this? Canal, because meichin amidus is musa adam, machshava dibur ma'aseh is a davar nesis. Now, l'chura can man fragen, if I'm not mistaken, I think when we doing this in Tanya, in Perek Daled in Tanya, we touched on this. L'chura can man fragen da klotz kashe. What we're saying, that machshava dibur ma'aseh is so easy to change. The fact is there are people which like talking, and it's very hard for them to not talk. Or there's people which don't like talking, and it's hard for them to make them talk. Machshava is so easy to change from one machshava to another. If it would be so easy, then half of our struggles in Aveda wouldn't be there. But you have a machshava, and you have to drive away a machshava to be able to focus on a machshava. If you want to think Inyan Chassidus, or if you don't want to think Inyan, what's the pastimish to think, then this is a whole world. What are we saying? It's easy. So that it is pashut. The reason why it's hard is because you like it, or because you don't like it. you like talking, that's why it's hard to be quiet. Das Guf is what we're saying over here, that midas are hard to change, and dibur itself is easy. If it would be just the dibur shebazeh, that would be easy. So it states in Perek Chav Ches in Tanya, says interessante Sach, that a person has machshava zaris, so a person should not try and be mile them. Why should you not be mile them? So it says, how could you be mile something if you yourself are part of it? So al yehi sheite, that's the lashon in Perek Chav Ches, to try to be mile something, to be mile machshava zaris. It says, aber a tzaddik could be mile machshava zaris. Why? Because in mile machshava zaris of acher. It's interessant. Al derech zeh, it says in other places. I just saw la'achrena. I was looking up the sefer. Not Lubavitcher, not Chassidus Chabad, but Chassidus sefer. So I had to check something up, and it says over there endliche Zach that tzaddikim bichlal you're not allowed to learn chachmas achakira, philosophy. But it says that tzaddikim do have to learn it. Why? Because there's neshamas which got involved in chachmas chitzenis, and it says over there kol beyel le yishuv, and if you get involved in chachmas chitzenis, then it's hard to come back. So therefore, a tzaddik has to do it in order to bring back the neshamas that are lost over there. So the fact is, God has first of it. The shaila, what's the hagdor over here? Why should the tzaddik not get? I mean, l'chura, the machshava, the same issue that there is in machshava zaris, so the tzaddik also. So state the beer. That tzaddik doesn't have a taiva. Because the tzaddik, libe chalul bekirbe, therefore he doesn't have a pesach tera, so therefore he's going to be able to be there and not get stuck. In andere Wörter, so states the Hasbara in them that there's two inyonim in the machshava. There's the geschmack of the machshava, when you have a machshava zara, and then there's the atheist. There's the actual machshava itself. When the tzaddik is going to go, what? Everything's okay? You have the etzem machshava, meaning the atheist, and then there's the nefesh of the machshava, the geschmack. The tzaddik doesn't have the geschmack of the machshava. He only has the atheist. Therefore, he remains detached, and therefore he's going to be able to be ma'ilid. I can't be ma'ilid my machshava zalis, because I don't have only a machshava, I have a nefesh over here. I have the hergish of the machshava. Mashayin came the tzaddik where it's just the machshava, so therefore he's going to be able to be ma'ilid, because even while he's thinking it, there's no geschmack shebazeh. So the poshta word, that the feed this you saw that with mechalik, that in machshava gufa there's the geschmack shebazeh, which is really midas, and the machshava itself, the fizeh can verstehen why a tzaddik could be ma'ilid. Okay. Okay. Atkan is the pashtus. In this Mamer, in the beginning of Sif Gimel, there's a lashon. He says, "Ubire inyan be'emek yeser." So, all right, let's just be masakim what we said over here, and then tomorrow we'll get involved with the Ubire inyan be'emek yeser, and we'll see what the Rebbe is being mesif over here. The sikum lefizeh, there's two inyanim. There's the nefesh ha'adam, the keiches ha'nefesh, which is expressions of nefesh, and therefore you can't change them, and that's what because they are me, and I misyaches to my keiches. When I have a meichen or midah, I get involved in it. I identify with it, so that's really me. Mashenk in the levushim, even though obviously it's part of the nefesh, I mean it's not part of the guf. Obviously the nefesh has levushim, but these levushim are ki'ilu within the nefesh and in nifrit of the nefesh. Lefizeh will take, that's the difference between Atzilus and Biyah. We know Atzilus has eser keches, eser spheres. Bia is machshava dibur u'maisa. So al derech that by a person, there is my eser keches, and there's my three levushim. Al derech ze is l'maylo, the ebishte kavyochel, they are his eser sphiron, lan hogaber in alme, that the ebishte made in himself, afikas. He brought out, afikas means to bring out in himself, eser spheres, but they're really all part of him. And when it is chesed, the taich chesed is that I am mischased. Like in Shirish Mitzvah Tefillah, the Tzemach Tzedek is Mazveh Barucha, that when I say chesed, it's not an union of chesed. There's him. When I say gevura, I don't mean gevura, I mean ato giber. It's not a midas ha-gevura, it's a person who's a giber. So, and when we're talking to the Eibishter, it's a you who is a giber. So what's the taich? When I say spheres, it's talking, they are messiachas to him, because that's the way the keches are. There's no such thing as having these inyanim separate from him. Mashenk in the levushim, they are separate from him. And that's the taich, machshav the dibur u'maisa. And as we discussed, Baruch, the difference between Bri Yitzir Asi is take, masim to machshav the dibur u'maisa, these are the inyanim, which are levushim, which are separate from the person. That's why they could. That's why you could change them, or you could stop them easily, because melachatchila, even when they are, they're not really him. So this is the pachet ha'agdara difference in Atzilus and Bia. Or lefizeh, that's the type when we say l'mayla din keitz or l'mata din tachlis. The Eibishter is l'mayla din keitz is Atzilus, and l'mata din tachlis is that the Eibishter also the keichach ha'gadol the Eibishter makes Bia. These are the two inyanim in the Eibishter. Says do eir or says do keach. Eir is gili of the Eibishter. Keach is that the Eibishter could make something outside of him, make an expression of bligvul that I could make a welt, make bia. So al derech in the nefesh. What brings out more the nefesh? The keiches of the levushim. So it depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about where is nefesh more apparent, that's in keiches. But where is the nefesh expressing its power is if I could say something, if a Rav could explain to the Talmud, they could come out in Dibur. That explains, that shows the keyach of the nefesh. It brings out that it can turn in a davar nifred, in a davar nivdul for me. If I could throw a stone and my keyach and I express itself on the stone, that is a keyach. That's meiser. So that is lemata mata din kates. So the Eibishter Kavyochel has these two inyanim, and this is doing to Atzilus and Bia. And das is the inyan wie das is bepashtus. In Sif Gimel, the Rebbe was meisiv be'emek Yosef. Just finish off with one word, as l'chule steht doch that there's Esses Spheres in Bia also. We know there's Esses Spheres of Bria, Esses Spheres of Yitzira. So what does that mean in our story? Over here, the way we're explaining it is that Keiches are only in Atzilus and Levushim is only in Bia. So l'chule the teretz is pashut, and I've heard people say this, I've seen it written, but I've never seen it in Chassidus inside. If anybody has a Maramakim, that would be very geschmack, but it makes sense. So we'll just say the pashtus is azay, that when machshava thinks seichel omidus, that's the way you have the Esses Spheres in the world of machshava. When I talk seichel omidus, it's the Esses Spheres the way they are in the world of Dibur. So l'chule, the original Esses Spheres, where are they in the real Muhus, the way they are Dovok in Nefesh, that's in Esses Spheres, that's Atzilus. But the way it's in Bria is Kilo Neymar, Esses Spheres, Meichen Amitis, the way they are in the world of Machshava, or in the world of Dibur, because each one of them could have all these Esser Inyan. Just let's conclude with one interessante Zach, nothing to do with this specific word we're discussing, is Bechlal, this Mamer. I was just talking with someone on the phone this afternoon. He mentioned, it's a Bavusta Zach, that when the Rebbe, this Mamer is the first time that the Manichim, the Rabbi, the whole Mareches, on the herangelegt to do such a heavy union. Till then, most of the Mugadikim Amarim came out Bismanim. Meaning the whole Melukat Aleph is really Mamarim which came out in that time. Then, in the end of Temimim of there's a whole story, but the Rebbe started being Megia Mamorim, and it was understood from the Rebbe himself was Meramis, that the Rebbe wants to see the Mamorim, wants to be Megia Mamorim L'Chavod Yom Tov. I mean, that we could just say the story Bekitzer, that when beautiful name, there was a Achnot Sefer Torah, and they put in a Mamer, and all the Achnot Sefer Torah, it was just a Chedesh Siv and Temimim Vov. And the Rebbe had stopped saying Mamorim since the beginning of the court case. So then, in the Pesach Dover, instead of writing L'Chavod Desiyam Rambam, L'Chavod Desiyam Sefer Torah, the Rebbe wrote L'Chavod Chag HaShavuos. So they understood from the Rebbe that for Yom Tov B'chlal, the Rebbe wants to put out all the Mamorim. So since the Rebbe stopped saying Mamorim, Geilu, so there was a certain Havana. So they tried it out. So they gave in a Maimah. The next Maimah was L'Chavod Yud Beis Tammuz Nosat L'Reacha Toshen Lamed Vov, and it was taken not Rabbi Yale's Hanacha, because Rabbi Yale didn't think that this whole thing is really thus. Basically, there was a younger man who was a Bissel Chutzpinyak. He took an old Hanacha of the Maimah from Toshen Lamed Vov. It was actually labeled all times Hanacha, and he just gave it in, and he told the label to tell the Rebbe that it's Rabbi Yale who wrote it. Kilo, it's coming from Rabbi Yale. And the Rebbe was Magia. And then Rabbi Yale chapt sich that it's true, that this guess that the Rebbe wants to be Magia Mamorim is true. So that's when the Rebbe started. So it's angefangen in this new Seder. But that was Temimim Zayin. And then it was Bechlolus, easier Mamorim. That's like most of them look at the base. Then for Pesach, Yudalit, Memches, so they decided to take this heavy Mamer, and it was a heavy union, and they gave it into the Rebbe. And the Rebbe wrote back a very sharp answer. Rabbi used to chazed this. The Rebbe wrote back, I don't remember the Lashon, but the Teichen was, as a Mareches in Yoni is, Larech HaShulchan, to set the table. Who could eat from this table? Meaning the Inyanim was so hard and so stiff, such a shvere Inyan, like what are you trying to do over here, make Mamorim on such shvere Inyan? And they got the Bitush, so they went back and rewrote it on what Iber gemacht until it was prepared again in a Sprach which was more Hasbaradik, more Gedaris, and then they gave it in. And that Pesach Memches, was a very famous Pesach, because the Rebbe started saying Siches every night of Chalamet. And what gemeint, actually, that it's going to be a new Seder, like Al Derech Sukkot, there was a Sicha every night of Chalamet. So Pesach, I mean, what gemeint, Shnas Hakel Memalef, the Rebbe started Sukkot, so in Memches, the Rebbe started every night of Pesach saying Sicha. And Lepoel afterwards, Memtes, the Rebbe didn't do it, so it was Vayis Sicha, so it was special for Tosh Memches. So it was only that year, every Tosh for a week straight, every time there was a Sicha. And the Sichas were became Sichas about Mashiach. And it was talking about flood. You can listen to the tapes of the Chalamet Sichas. Apparently, Achron Shal Pesach was Bechlal a feierdige Verbringen, like anyone who was there describes like it was the Hargosha was as Mashiach's coming today, right now. The Rebbe was talking about Mashiach in the most unbelievable terms. And it was a medicated Seiros. But those Sichas of Chalamet were very, very fire. Bein Advarim, the Rebbe said then, as mezet, as me ken mazbe sein de Inyonim von Lifnei HaTzimtzum, von the Tzimtzum, afilo zu a kind. And he can be mazbe, the tiefste Inyonim and Chassidus are coming out in the most clear Hasbara, like it was very, very strong. So the Mareches then, the Rabbi Yale, the Melech, whoever was helping out, had just given in the Maimah, and they knew that this Maimah was lying on the Rebbe's table, and they understood that the Rebbe had given them such a sharp Maimah, and suddenly over here, the Rebbe is speaking about how I was Mamer the Inyonim over here, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, and the Tifste Inyonim and Chassidus can come in Hasbara, so they took it as a very big compliment. L'Poel the Maimah came out to Achron Shal Pesach, but the Melech who said that when they heard that Sicha, so nobody knew what the Rebbe was talking about. But the Rebbe said clearly, Mizet of Lachrena nowadays, you could be Masber the Inyonim and Chassidus. So they understood it was a big idut, as the Rebbe liked the arbet that they did. So this is this Maimah. Weißt du, the Rebbe had a special chavivus. Geschmack in this Mamer. Zwei, when the Rebbe said it, Kanal, and touching Yudalet, the Rebbe was Masbir, how this in Mamer is, you have the same Mamer for every one of the Rabbeim, and each one with their own Chidushim. And so when it came out, the Rebbe made a whole teras, because we can Masbir sein, the Inyonim, in Chassidus, in the Hasbara Sprach. So, Mitzvah Shem, for the next week, this is what we're going to be doing. Seid gesund. We'll see you tomorrow.